Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to part 14 of the Chronological Read Through the Bible. Now, today covers Genesis chapter 37 through 39. It's really a lot of material. I'm primarily going to be looking at chapter 37. This is where it really makes a major transition, really, to now Joseph being the primary character or focal point throughout the remainder of the chapter of Genesis. Now, we will have a little bit of a episode with Judah in chapter 38. I'm not going to so much focus on that. Each of these could be taught as complete whole lessons, which would be more than an hour, several hours on just the part of Joseph. I want to point out that Joseph's life is really like a roller coaster ride. He has ups and he has downs and ups and downs, and each time you think, how could a person withstand this pressure and this roller coaster ride? Now, just to start off, it really just opens up with an event of basically him reporting to his father a misdeed or misaction of his brothers. We don't know exactly what the situation was, and was it that they were ignoring their duties with the sheep? I think in a cartoon of Joseph, it has the brothers having gone off to a swimming hole while having left the sheep to fend for themselves, and a wolf comes to get them. But that's not in the Bible. We could kind of wonder what happened at that moment, but either way, it's kind of seen as a tattletale or reporting to the father. Then the father makes the action of giving Joseph a coat. We see that as a coat of many colors. Some translations would read it as a coat of long sleeves. I believe it's maybe a little of both, and in some ways, if you can picture this, I think it's the real distinction isn't just that it's a special garment, but that it's a garment that is not worn by laborers. It would be a garment worn by more of somebody who worked in bookkeeping, or somebody who had a professional white collar job rather than blue collar. And so that instantly set him apart from his brothers. Now, I kind of wonder if in that part of Joseph's life, if this may have been his father Jacob, now his name hadn't been changed to Israel, and some of it may have been with, since Joseph was his favored son, that he was like, well, you're the son that's going to stay here. You're going to stay at home. That's what I did when I was your age. I wasn't out tending the sheep, out hunting. I was safe at home. So you almost have to wonder if that was even a part of the mindset there, is that he would be the homebody. At the same time, I think that his father was raising him to be a bit of an overseer of the family, and probably since he was one that didn't mind reporting about what his brothers were up to. It's in this time period that God gives Joseph two distinct dreams. And I won't go to the details of each dream, but I will say this. This is where some people heavily criticize Joseph of having repeated his dreams to his brothers, and then the second dream to his brothers and father. And I just sort of think here that sometimes when God speaks to you, it's hard to not repeat it. And even at first, I don't know, even though he is the great interpreter of dreams, he may not have really grasped the dream himself until he was in the process of repeating it. Sometimes when you have a dream, even if it's a very vivid dream, it's not until you start repeating it that it all starts kind of coming clear in your mind. And he may have just started talking about it to get it out there before he forgot what he had dreamt. Has that ever happened to you? You dream a dream, you wake up, you're thinking about it, and then you don't say or do anything, and then all of a sudden it's gone. You're like, wait, I forgot about that. I don't know. It's just, I think that where the direction I'm going in with it's as plausible as some of the people that criticize him, saying, well, he never should have even shared. He is prideful, and telling his brothers, look, I was far above all of you, and you were worshiping me or bowing to me. I don't know that he had fully thought through that. And it was clear, I will say, I think it was clear that God was leading him to share these dreams. Because at the end of the day, even though it didn't fare too well with him, that's a part of what ended up with him as a slave in Egypt, of which we will later see him being in Egypt and him being a slave and being a prisoner, and then serving in the prison and hearing the dream of the cupbearer and the baker. These are the things that would end up with Joseph then in the highest position of the land and the known world, really, other than Pharaoh. So I believe that we can take here the verse of Scripture, all things work together for the good of those who fear the Lord. A part of where I say that roller coaster ride of Joseph's life is Joseph, to me, is one of the most intriguing characters, because very few people are there in the Bible, and I'm not saying Joseph was without sin, but very few do we see throughout the Scriptures that they don't fall in to some gross sin. And yet we don't find that in Joseph's life. And I think that's why some people try to point to the dreams with saying, you see, he was prideful. So now his brothers have this anger, this jealousy for him, and the brothers have been sent to Shechem to graze the sheep. Now, remember, they had their own little problems. You can go back a few chapters. If you don't remember about Shechem, they had their own little issues in Shechem already. And when Joseph, being now sent by his father to go and check on his brothers, or kind of report on your brothers, spy on your brothers, now that he goes to do that, he finds that his brothers are not in Shechem, but that they've gone to Dothan. And Dothan, if you remember later, Dothan is where Elisha has the army of angels around about the city, protecting him from those who have come to do harm, those who have come to kill him. Same city, just giving you that reference. So his brothers, when they see him coming, what do they say? They say, let's kill him. They begin to conspire to kill their brother. And the Bible tells us that it was Reuben at that point which tried to stop the brothers from doing this, and then they put him down into the well or cistern and left him there as they debated about what they were going to do. Now it's interesting, we keep having this picture of that Reuben isn't there through all of the activities that's taking place with his brothers. And I believe that it's quite possible that Reuben was having to go and watch the sheep and all of the flocks, or maybe manage the other shepherds who were not brothers, but the other workers. Maybe he was responsible for overseeing all of that at that time. And so, like, the other brothers weren't even doing any work. I don't know. We don't have that in Scripture, but we do have in Scripture that Reuben's just not around for a part of this. So we're told that Reuben was kind of plotting or trying to come up with a way to rescue his brother. Was it that he loved Joseph so much? I don't think so. I think it goes back to the relationship that basically that Reuben had with his father's concubine. And I believe out of that relationship, and this is, I was looking it up, this is in Genesis chapter 35 verse 22, and in the relationship that he had with Bilhah, and that ending up crushing his father. I think he saw his father's reaction. I think in his mind, he's thinking, if they do harm to Joseph, if Joseph is killed, this will crush his father. And I think he just didn't want to see his father like that again. So, of course, it's at this point that the brothers see the Ishmaelite traders coming on their way, and they end up selling him. And note now whose idea that is. That is Judah's idea, to sell the brother. So, just when you consider these events as how fast they unfold, Reuben wasn't there when their brother sold. He comes back, finds the empty pit. He's like, what's happened? And now he realizes that this is not good. They take the tunic and they slaughter a lamb. They dip the tunic in blood of the lamb, and that's what's taken back to the father. And I believe this is where Reuben's like, he won't take this having happened from one of us. This is going to have to be that, there's going to have to be a story cooked up with this. I just want you to think about where the brothers had to be in their heart. The hatred they had to have developed for Joseph. And again, I know some would say, well, Joseph shouldn't have tattletaled on them, or Joseph shouldn't have shared his dreams with them. Well, there could be a lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas here, but at the end of the day, that's what Joseph had did. And I believe that Joseph did that as a leading of the Lord. How his brothers reacted is on them. You can't lay the blame at Joseph's feet here. I don't see where he's at fault. It's the brothers that are at fault with their reaction. And then the scriptures tell us that Joseph was taken by the Ishmaelite traders and sold in Egypt to Potiphar. Potiphar was the captain of the guards for Pharaoh. So he ends up being sold to a high-ranking official in the Egyptian world and in the Egyptian government, if you will. I mean, here's Egypt. 1,000+ years old nation. A nation unrivaled in the world at that time period. No army would really desire to even lift up a sword against Egypt. This is the top. I mean, by the time Egypt was even established, the pyramids were old. It was an ancient civilization. And now this is where Joseph finds himself, and finds himself in the home of an official. Now, you're going to read as you go through the rest of this part. This is when Joseph ends up at the highest placement inside of Potiphar's house as far as a servant is concerned. Really only second to Potiphar. And Potiphar's wife is going to seduce Joseph, but he will not fall for that. He does not collapse to it or give way to it. And some would be like, well, why not? This would only win him more favor, or it's a compliment. Well, but he stands with God. And again, this is what we see over and over again, is Joseph stands firm in his walk with the Lord. But Potiphar's wife accuses him of trying to rape her, and this ends up with Joseph in prison. And then look at all the things that Joseph could have complained to God about. He could have said, my brothers, they tried to kill me. My brothers put me in a pit. My brothers sold me into slavery. I was falsely accused of trying to rape this woman, and now I'm in prison. But we never hear him complain. We never see that. And yet each time, after having gone to the bottom, into the valley, he rises back up to the mountaintop. Joseph is an amazing life, and we're going to learn more about it tomorrow. Till then, brothers and sisters, God bless.